started giving the intro. As noted, my name is Carol Boushey, and I will share some of our work addressing the concepts of diet quality and intermittent fasting and their association with cancer risk. Although I have to say, I just noticed, and you'll find out later, we actually don't use intermittent fasting. So we'll get to that in a bit. First, I'll be going over the dietary patterns part. And one of the best approaches to evaluate diet quality is through the identification of dietary patterns. The definition of dietary patterns is the quantities, proportions, variety, or combination of different foods and drinks and nutrients when available in diets and the frequency with which they are habitually consumed. Poor diet quality is believed to be one of the leading risks of years of life lost. Dietary patterns help with disentangling the complexity of diet and the recognition that people eat foods as opposed to nutrients. Analysis of single nutrients may be confounded by the influence of dietary patterns, which are more complex. Large clinical trials have demonstrated that positive health outcomes can be gained by including total diet, such as the dietary approaches to stop hypertension, or referred to as the DASH diet, and the Mediterranean diet. Policy and guidance from the federal government emphasizes dietary patterns. The University of Hawaii Cancer Center is part of the Dietary Patterns Methods Project originating from the National Cancer Institute. The project has focused on 4 dietary indexes: the Healthy Eating Index, the Alternate Healthy Eating Index, the Mediterranean Diet Score, and the dietary approaches to stop hypertension. This is an abbreviated table showing the components used for scoring each of the dietary patterns. Remember, there are 4 different dietary patterns. Note, no one diet quality index has the same collection of foods and beverages. And this is just a reinforcement that diet quality can be achieved using the dietary pattern you prefer. There are many choices that can be made. Going back to our Dietary Patterns Methods project, the cohorts involved were the multi-ethnic cohort from here, the National Institutes of Health AARP Diet and Health Study, the Women's Health Initiative Observational Study. The combined size using these 3 cohorts is 698,000 men and women, or just over 500,000 people. In this slide, there are 3 distinct US cohorts. This project has shown marked reductions in all-cause mortality, marked as A, cardiovascular disease mortality, marked as B, and cancer mortality, marked as C, and the associated adherence to the 4 different dietary indexes, as I had the same ones that I'd shared earlier. These graphs are comparing quintile 1, the lowest quality diet group, which is represented by the dotted line at the number 1.0 mark, and quintile 5, the highest quality diet group, are shown by the dots, which include error bars. On average, the highest diet quality groups have a 20% reduction in risk for all-cause mortality and cardiovascular disease mortality. For cancer, the range is wider, between 10 and 20% reduction. These results show that marked reductions in mortality can be associated with higher quality diets. Consistent trends and benefits of adherence starting as low as even quintile 2 of dietary intake levels, with incremental increases in each quintile. This suggests that even small improvements in dietary intake levels could have meaningful impact in the total population, Further, benefits can be achieved with a pattern of your choice. As part of the Dietary Guidelines for Americans report, the average adherence score to the Healthy Eating Index was estimated by age groups from ages 2 years to over 60 years. The highest score for the Healthy Eating Index is 100. As you can see, no one in this group comes close to meeting what we consider the recommendation of meeting the entire Healthy Eating Index. These data represent the multi-ethnic cohort, which includes participants in Hawaii and Los Angeles. This shows the results at entry and 10 years later regarding the Healthy Eating Index score, the same one that we just saw in the total population of the United States, or representative population of NHANES. So and as you can see here, the multi-ethnic cohort, folks from Hawaii and Los Angeles, have a lot higher total index scores. And the cohort showed in addition, the cohort showed a modest but statistically significant increase in consumption of whole grains. However, for added sugar, there was a modest but statistically significant increase in sugar intake. So we can't all be perfect. But at the same time, if we look at the total score here, it's an uplifting story for Hawaii that the men and women in the multi-ethnic cohort, including volunteers from Hawaii and Los Angeles, the scores range from total scores range from 65.6 to 68.8 for men, and 69.4 and 70.3 for women. Not only did the multi-ethnic scores improve over time, because this is comparing baseline and 10 years later, they exceeded the representative population across the US, where the 31 to 60-year-old group in the national sample have scores of 59 and 63. Nonetheless, we can still improve. However, we can at least pat ourselves in the back for now for better adherence to the dietary guidelines compared to others in the United States. A healthy eating routine is important at every stage of life and can have positive effects that add up over time. It's important to eat a variety of fruits, vegetables, grains, dairy or fortified soy alternatives, and protein foods. When deciding what to eat or drink, choose options that are full of nutrients and make every bite. Think about how the recommendations can come together over the course of your day or week to help you create a healthy eating routine. Traditionally, researchers studied the relationships between single foods or nutrients and health outcomes. However, diet is complex and we do not eat single foods and nutrients. Therefore, our shift to studying high-quality dietary patterns, which assess the totality of the diet and help capture complex interactions and intercorrelations between nutrients and foods, has set us on a new course of dietary recommendations. Now, segueing over to the next topic, any of you recognize these papers here? These are the two papers placed on the website as pre-reading for today. The idea of intermittent fasting, time-restricted feeding, continuous energy restriction, and fasting are hot topics at the moment. I want to share the path we are taking with research in this space. The concept of alternate day and twice weekly energy restriction has caught our attention, particularly intermittent energy restriction. And we have worked with one of the founders of these concepts, Michelle Harvey from the United Kingdom. The area we are most interested in targeting, where we want to have influence, is targeting a reduction in visceral fat. which had been mentioned earlier. As you had heard from Anhee Lim, visceral adiposity, more so than subcutaneous adiposity, is associated with cardiovascular disease and metabolic consequences as a result of the obesity. Asians and Asian Americans are at higher metabolic risk for excess adiposity compared to whites and other racial ethnic populations. In the multi-ethnic cohort adiposity phenotype study conducted in Hawaii and California, we observed Japanese Americans preferentially score excess fat as visceral adipose tissue over subcutaneous adipose tissue. This is not to say all ethnic groups aren't affected. Indeed, this is a growing problem across the United States. Our first effort to intervene on this was the Healthy Diet and Lifestyle Study. We set the goal to demonstrate the feasibility to conduct a nutrition intervention to reduce visceral adipose tissue in East Asian middle-aged adults. And I would be remiss to not point out this was possible due to funding from the William and Ellen Malone Endowed Research Fund. In this study, the active comparator was prescribed a euenergetic DASH diet, a healthy dietary pattern that met participants' estimated energy requirement for 7 days a week. The macronutrient composition was approximately 20% energy from protein, 53% energy from carbohydrate, and 30% energy from fat. And note, everything that we do, as much as possible, we try to wrap within a dietary pattern. The exploratory or primary intervention group followed a euenergetic med diet, which met the participants' estimated energy requirements, and the macronutrient composition was approximately 25% protein, 45% carbohydrate, and 30% energy from fat. The intermittent energy restriction prescription consisted of 2 consecutive days with a 70% energy restriction. And the macronutrient composition was approximately 34% of energy from protein, 33% of energy from carbohydrate, and 33% of energy from fat. Participants self-selected these 2 contiguous days. We did not say which ones they should use. They selected them to follow their IER protocol. By following this, their overall energy restriction was 25%. Participants were randomized to active control, which was the euenergetic DASH diet, or the med diet, which was a euenergetic med diet over 5 days, and the 2 days of the intermittent energy restriction. The were selected, as I had said earlier, due to their previous work of documenting them as having the highest rates of visceral adipose tissue. And we thought that too, this might be a more challenging diet for some Japanese Americans to adopt to. Of note, we only experienced in this study a 10% attrition rate. We thought it would be 20%, thus affirmation in the end that our dietary intervention is doable. Also, to go over it, to continue with what we did, registered dietitians outlined the detailed instructions at time 0 and delivered the intervention messages using a motivational interview approach. Initial instruction with the participants was provided in person regarding the diet plan assignment per randomization. As a FYI, all the participants were blinded to their intervention assigned diet. 8 intervention sessions were conducted over the phone across the 12 weeks. At week 12, the loss of visceral fat in the IER Med group was double that of the DASH group. At week 12, the IER Med group lost over double the amount of total body fat and subcutaneous fat. Even among the DASH group, which were prescribed a euenergetic diet energy intake, they even had improvements. These results were very promising. We concluded this was a successful undertaking and confirmed we can move forward on a broader scale. So what's next for us then? Well, the effects of intermittent energy restriction on inter-abdominal fat and the gut microbiome, a randomized trial. With this, we will investigate the IER plus med dietary pattern, and we believe it will be superior to daily energy restriction within a Mediterranean dietary pattern in reducing abdominal, visceral, and liver fat among a multi-ethnic at-risk adult population. So now we are doubling the length from the pilot study to 24 weeks. We now have ethnic diversity, East Asian, Pacific Islanders, and white ethnic groups, and more people, 310 men and women with high VAT, and so about 156 per study arm. This is part of what is, we had submitted this as part of the provocative question. So stay tuned, stay on your radar, because we might be contacting you, and if you're eligible, we'd love to have you on board when we get started with this, and we're hoping it will be soon. So to close out, every project needs a small army, and every project needs funding. So on here, I've called out members of the small army that made these various projects that I shared with you today possible, and also the funding from not only agencies, government agencies, but also local donors.